Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're doing something pretty specific, actually.
Yeah, we're taking a very particular angle. We're looking at seven biblical verses.
Right, interconnected ones from Deuteronomy, Chronicles, Psalms. Ezekiel's in there too.
And mapping them using Ernest L. Martin's framework, specifically his thinking from before 1998.
And the goal here, our mission, is really to see how this ancient scriptural cycle he outlined might align with what's happening, well, right now, September 20th, 2025.
Focusing especially on Jerusalem and Washington, D.C.
Okay, so this framework from Martin, it's not typical Bible study, right?
No, not at all. It's defined by this really intense literal interpretation.
Literal how?
Like taking the words at their absolute face value. Plus, he relies heavily on, finding celestial markers, specific dates, trying to restore the original context, sometimes weighing Masoretic versus Septuagint differences.
Got it. So very grounded in trying to find tangible, almost physical fulfillments.
Exactly. So let's unpack the narrative these seven verses build. It seems to form a cycle.
Yeah, starting with what Martin sees as divine order. You get that from, like, 1 Chronicles 9, detailing the ordered leadership in Jerusalem.
Right, and Ezekiel 40, with those incredibly precise temple dimensions, it's all about establishing a perfect, measured standard.
But then almost immediately there's the contrast. Profanation, apostasy.
Yeah, stark contrast. You see it in 2 Chronicles 33, King Manasseh building altars to the host of heaven right there in the temple courts.
Corrupting that sacred space.
And then Isaiah 57.5, which is really quite disturbing. It links idolatry directly to slaughtering the children in valleys.
Okay, so order, then, this deep transgression.
Yeah.
Which leads where in this cycle?
Inevitably to judgment and retribution. Deuteronomy 31.3 sort of kicks it off. It's the preamble, the covenant warning.
The warning of what happens if the order is broken.
Precisely. And that leads to the really brutal cry for retribution you find in Psalm 137.9.
Blessed shall he be who shall seize and dash thine infants against the rock. It's shocking language.
It is. And here's the tension Martin's framework really highlights,
What's that?
Well, Isaiah condemns Israel for child sacrifice, this horrific apostasy, but then the psalm seems to celebrate executing judgment violently on the children of their enemies.
Wow, so there's like a cycle where the judgment mirrors the initial crime?
That's the interpretation, yeah. Order profaned leads to a judgment that adopts the very violence being condemned, a horrific cycle.
Okay, let's bring this to today, September 20th, 2025. How does this ancient, intense cycle map onto current events? First, Jerusalem.
Right, the epicenter. We're seeing reports on the Israeli ground offensive in Gaza City. The stated aim is dismantling Hamas infrastructure.
But the human cost is, well, it's severe. Reports of a mass exodus, a major humanitarian crisis.
And specific accounts from doctors alleging children are being killed in the conflict.
And that brings in the judgment language, doesn't it?
It does internationally. We have to impartially report that a UN commission has formally accused Israel of genocide. Now, the Israeli government strongly rejects this, calling the accusation distorted and false.
But the language itself, genocide, fits that severe judgment theme from the cycle.
Yes, the intensity of the language used on the world stage is notable here.
Okay, let's contrast that. Washington, D.C., assertive U.S. nationalism. What's happening there?
President Trump signed a proclamation. This is pretty major, imposing a new $100,000 annual fee for new H-1B visas.
$100,000? Wow.
Yeah, unprecedented. It's being framed publicly as, economic nationalism, security, protecting American jobs and interests.
So how do we synthesize this? Connecting Martin's literal lens to Gaza and this U.S. policy.
Well, applying that strict literalism, the tragic reports of children killed in Gaza, Martin's framework would see that as a horrifically direct, real-world manifestation of that retributive justice cried out for in Psalm 137.
The violent end of the cycle playing out.
That's how it would be interpreted, yes, and the U.S. action.
The H-1B fee. That scale, that unilateral assertion.
Fits right under that Deuteronomy 31 warning, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A powerful nation trusting in its own strength, its economic might, a kind of national pride or assertiveness that, in this covenant framework, often precedes a humbling.
So you have intense crisis and judgment in one sphere, and this bold national self-assertion in another.
And what's also interesting, kind of a side note, but relevant to the framework.
What's that?
The world seems quite distracted. Major global sporting events are just carrying on. Rugby World Cup, World Athletics Championships.
Life goes on for many.
Exactly, which aligns with many eschatological views where judgment or crisis arrives while the world is preoccupied with, normal life.
So wrapping this up, the alignment seems to be current events, viewed through this specific Martin lens, fit a cycle: order, profanation, then judgment characterized by violence and national assertiveness.
Right. It's interpreted not as random chaos, but as part of a pattern, maybe even a kind of violent cleansing before something new.
Which leads to a final thought for you, the listener. If this interpretation holds, if the current events reflect the violent end of a destructive cycle,
Then what about restoration? There's that final prayer in Psalm 143.0.
teach me to do thy will, lead me into a land of uprightness. How does that simple plea become relevant?
Does it suggest the blueprint out of this cycle isn't more assertion, but a radical return to seeking, well, divine guidance in a different kind of order? Something to think about.